Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we do return on the back of Spurs being beaten by Chelsea by 4-3 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yes, these shows are getting tougher and tougher, but the guests just keep getting better and better and keep rolling on. Like I say, if you're listening for the very, very first time, you can find us on iTunes or on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We are, of course, on X. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We are on Blue Sky too. I'm joined by entertainment's event host, whatever you want to make of that one, Compere, the wonderful Richard Cracknell's in the house, alongside broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams and actor TJ Ramini, who are the latest on the therapeutic couch to try and offer some guidance, some understanding, some direction, a dissertation of where Spurs are currently at. Quite frankly, it's a football club right now. And can I just say, just to open the show, it's really important that I say this, just so, look, I always want to be transparent as a host and transparent with you amazing people that have overseen the journey of Last Word on Spurs for so many years and have always been so loyal to us with the love, with the feedback, with the support. And can I just say, it's really important that I say this, that I see every comment, every word that you leave us on feedback, whether that's on X, whether that's on Facebook or Instagram or on YouTube or across all our platforms. And I'm going to be honest with you and say to you, that feedback means a lot to us. It means a lot to me personally. I lean on that feedback to make myself a better host, to try and produce better shows. And I've got no qualms in saying to you that personally, maybe, because of how I feel as a fan at the moment, so disconnected right now, I'm going to be brutally honest and say to you that I want to say maybe the last 2 or 3 shows from my perspective, just from me in general here as a host and directing the show, I think could have been better and could have been produced better. And I want to say that to you, just so you are acutely aware that I always want to try and produce the very best content for Last Word on Spurs with the incredible, amazing people that we bring on this show. And right now we are in a difficult moment as a football club. Many would say it's a difficult 20-year period. But I think it's only true that I'm honest and share that with you amazing people out there. So that's what I want to say at the very, very top of this show. Like I say, we're joined by Crackers, TJ Ramini and Russ Williams on this Last Word on Spurs. Where do we go? Look, there's a lot of questions to get into about everything Tottenham right now. It's a mad game for Tottenham that does end against Chelsea to start with, if we can. 4-3 to Chelsea. Tottenham throwing away a 2-goal advantage. Spurs causing their own problems as they concede 2 penalties. That is now 1 point from the last 3 league games and 1 win in the last 7 games in all competitions. And for those on audio, just to run you through the match facts and stats from that game. So in terms of Tottenham, they had, just to bring that back up there, 13 shots to Chelsea's 17. Spurs with 5 shots on target to Chelsea's 8. 26 touches in the box to Chelsea's 46. Keeper saves 4-2 in the favour of Spurs. Forster, the busier of the 2 goalkeepers. Fouls, there was 17 in Spurs' favour, 11 in Chelsea's. Corner-wise, Spurs had 5. Chelsea, obviously, with 10. Penalties, Chelsea got 2 of them on the day. I think very hard to argue with either of them. And possession-wise, Chelsea pretty much dominating that. 62% to Spurs' 38. And XG-wise, just to bring that into comprehension, Chelsea with 3.00 on the XG. Spurs, quite simply, a difficult day at the office, and it's not the first time we say that. Look, in terms of this show, we are going to try and cover everything. Because I say, when there are shows like this, I know many people have anger and frustration to the current hierarchy, and most likely do so. They have question marks with regards to Ange Postecoglou, the upcoming transfer window, the squad, the players. How much accountability should they be taking in relation to that result and that performance and the way we allow that game to slip? But I am going to start, if I can, with Crackers. Cracks, lovely to have you on here. A lot to discuss. So we'll start with the game itself. The game, it felt, Cracks, was there to be won, despite the chaotic nature of how that game was panning out, really, from minute 1. We just seemed to lose all of our heads as soon as Romero went off, which might sound crazy to me to say that. You know, there was a real lack of composure, a real lack of control over that game in which Spurs blow a 2-0 lead. How do you reflect on that result and overall performance on the game itself? Throughout the result of the game itself?
Evening, morning, afternoon, everybody, and I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Rick, if this football club was run as well as you run Last Word on Spurs, then we might get somewhere as a football club. So, what you do with this show is incredible because, contrary to some quarters' belief that like you're getting £1 million a month off of this show. You're not. You're a working family man like the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, and you manage to balance home life and kids and a job and do this and bring good quality content every week. So well done to you. That's the most important thing. Well, look, Romero going off seemed to have a huge bearing. It really, really did. Now, has he actually pushed himself to come back, which is probably the mark of the man as a player that wants to get out there, that wants to try and help? But that has to be balanced against, was he actually ready? Now, if he wasn't ready but did want to go out there, then this is a reflection of where we are as a squad. That Dragosin came in and he done well, but we are so paper thin, and it also is a reflection of the mentality of the club and the players within it. We lose one player and we just seem to have a first 11 and a squad that have actually, pardon my French, shit themselves and just absolutely gone down the pan with it. Now, if you're a player of a certain quality and mentality, you would see something like that happen and you'd pick yourself up by 20%. Okay, we've lost Romero. Everybody's got to dig in and pick themselves up and go here. But we seem to lose 20%. We seem to go the other way. We seem to have a squad of players that just haven't quite got that mentality, that never say die attitude. And that, frankly, comes down to the club and the caliber of player that they're bringing in, and they're attracting with maybe the wages that they're paying, what they're prepared to pay as a club in a transfer fee. Okay, we'll buy player X for 40 million when player Y for 70 million, brings you that mentality, brings you that quality. So everything at Tottenham just seems to be so paper thin with the quality, the mentality, and that just permeates right down through the club from top to bottom. There's no focus solely on the football at this football club at the moment. There's too much chaos going on everywhere with different business interests and this and that. There's just not that laser-like focus on the football. You look at who we played today, Chelsea. Now, I'm a man of a vintage, and sorry to drag you down with me here, Russ. I would say you're somewhere in my ballpark as well. I remember Chelsea when they had people going around the edge of the pitch with buckets, collecting coins, scrabbling together coins to save their club. That happened. I mean, Save the Bridge and people, and it was buckets outside collecting coins just to try and get some money together to keep that club afloat. Tottenham's never been there. Never, ever has been there. Then they start to do well, and Abramovich comes in. Now, okay, where he got the money from is for another day. But he came and put serious good money into that club, and he bought quality players. He spent money at that club. Okay, you could argue that he was acting outside of the rules at the time, but that's what he done. Then all of a sudden you get what's happened with Russia, and he's had to go. So the club goes back into turmoil again. but they get new owners that come in and put serious money in. Now, it looked like chaos to begin with, but the manager came in, they got Pochettino in, that never worked out. They got themselves a quality manager. He ring-fenced a section of those 800 players that they seemed to buy and said, this is my squad, I'm working with this. And then all of a sudden, they're back once again. So in that time of Daniel Levy's tenure, they've gone from nothing to everything, back to nothing, back to everything. And this has all been under his watch because the clubs that Chelsea's had two owners that have come in and thrown good money at it and made football the focus. Everything we see at this club, from that mentality of Romero, going back to the original question, Romero going off and everybody just seeming to like melt, comes down from him and what he does at the club. He is a failed project. He is absolutely failed at this club. He is failing this club. And the sooner he goes, the better. That doesn't mean Enoch has to go, but he has to go. He has to go. This is a failure, an absolute abject failure. And it is on Daniel Levy and that current board. Because as we've always said, Rick, if Daniel Levy had employed Daniel Levy and failed this much, Daniel Levy would have sacked Daniel Levy. It's a circus, Rick. It's an absolute circus. And like the old Turkish proverb says, when a clown moves into a palace, the clown doesn't become a king, the palace becomes a circus. And he's just built himself a huge circus there. And he's overseeing a lot of it. He is absolutely overseeing a lot of it. Everything comes down to him. This is all on him. Every last bit of it.
Cracks, thank you so much. You know what? It's a tough show to do with a lot to discuss on it. TJ, I'm going to come round to you. Look, I feel like to some degree the game, it shouldn't be seen as an insignificance because we're playing a London derby. We're playing Chelsea, one of our fiercest rivals, and a game that we were 2-0 up in and seemingly let it slide away. It feels like, though, there's a lot of bigger problems going on at Tottenham at the moment than just the results on the field. You know, we talk about the fact that I said in the opening intro that I know there's so many Tottenham fans out there that are so disconnected right now with the football club, whether that's the board, whether that's the playing squad, whether that's the questions over the manager. I don't think I've ever seen in these last, 6 to 12 months, or dare I go even further than that, I'd probably say since Pochettino's departure from the club, such a division right now amongst the fan base. And I don't care what anybody says, you cannot achieve nothing, absolutely nothing, unless you have togetherness. Togetherness in the boardroom, togetherness in the managerial approach, togetherness amongst the playing staff, togetherness amongst the fans. I mean, TJ, give me your thoughts on the game itself and how you are feeling right now as a Spurs fan, given a lot I've just thrown at you there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I suspect I'm feeling worse than some fans, better than others. It's torture at the moment, Rick. It's torture. It's torture at the moment. Watching the game here this morning in Los Angeles, we come out, play well, score 2 great goals. Chelsea were at 6s and 7s, couldn't clear their lines. Sanchez just couldn't seem to pass to a player in a blue shirt. And we made a little hay while the sun shone. Nowhere near enough. We could have scored 4 in the first 15 minutes when Sanchez passed it pretty much straight to Kulu. And he's through centrally. He's kind of like, I don't really know what to do here. It wasn't on his left foot. That needs to improve. His right foot needs to improve. Ended up kind of passing it to Johnson, but it took him too long to make that pass. And, we squandered the opportunity. And a really good friend of mine lives around the corner from me. I've known him forever, a really close friend of mine. Is a Chelsea fan. Texts me, he's like, oh, Jesus Christ, you guys are playing so well. And I text him back, bro, this is Tottenham. And were any of us, turning cartwheels down the Seven Sisters Road when we went 2-0 up? No. And what does that say about our club? because my goodness, the fans were so committed, right? Were so committed, more than we perhaps should be, but you can't help it. It's not a choice that one makes with one's mind. It's mainly in your heart, and you just can't change it. Thank you, Stephen. I'll do my best for you, brother. I promise you. But it's just so tough right now because we're so fragile, man. We're so fragile, and there's lots of reasons for that fragility. But our squad is so thin, man. It's so thin, and so players who had a bad game today, like, you know, Bissouma had the penalty aside, had a bad game. Sarr, his penalty aside, had a poor game. Like, there's a bunch of players who had a poor game. What do we do? Even if we do have, even whether people are Ange in or Ange out, look at that bench. Who would you pick to go? We don't have Bentancur. Are we picking Bergvall to go and try to get us out of that, or Maddison to try to get us out of that, or Timo Werner, or, no disrespect, one of the kids that I can't recall their names? And so we are in trouble at the moment, Rick. We just are, mate. So how I'm feeling, a mix of emotions, like all of us. I'm going to try to find some positives. I'm going to start with a positive that the fans at the stadium seems to be doing a fantastic job of trying to lift the players, which is really important. And I have nothing but love and respect for those men, women, and children who schlep their asses from wherever it is that they're going in the freezing cold and the rain, and stand there, you know, for hours and hours and sing and chant and clap their hands. So I take my hats off to all of you, man. I feel for you very, very deeply. I feel for you, Rick, having to host another episode of this fantastic program that you put so much love and energy into, and to my fellow panelists who are outstanding gentlemen and orators and articulate individuals. We're going to do our best for you, Tottenham fans. But yeah, man, tough times right now.
TJ, my man, thank you so much. Russ, I have to apologise, Matt. I'm so sorry. I feel like now, Russ, we've got a build up and a crescendo coming with Russ. So I'm, like I say, with TJ, I'm so blessed to have these two amazing people join our cast so regularly. I know many people love hearing Russ's thoughts, and as Crackers always alludes to that point of the analogy, it is like honey being poured down your throat. Sorry, Cracks, I've got there first rather than you. God, do we need some honey being poured down our throats right now on the back of what we've had to stomach over these last God knows how many years. And you know what? We will come on to Ange Postecoglou shortly, and of course the result and the nature of the performance. But yeah, it does feel like, to go back to Cracker's point there, Russ, that Ange's name is maybe not right now, but down the line is going to be added to a long list of Spurs managers who have been left severely lacking by any sort of squad depth. And if he goes, there is nothing really to give the fans any comfort that the next manager will last any longer. You know, it's 5 permanent managers in the last 5 years. The club is, quite frankly, a complete and utter mess. And I'll make this very, very clear for those that don't know where I stand. Football is not the priority of this current ownership. It is not. It's not. It's really, really not. And look, I've made it very, very clear on definitely the more recent media interviews that I've given, broadcasts I've done on Last Word on Spurs, that I couldn't be any more open to a change now if I tried. I've made that very, very clear. I'd gamble. I'd roll the dice. I want change. We need change. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Russ, feel free to throw in your thoughts on the Chelsea game, but just quite frankly, I know it sounds mad me saying this, what are Tottenham Hotspur right now? What are we as a football club? What are we?
Well, we're extremely unreliable on the football pitch. I mean, before I come on to Mr. Levy and the board and briefly maybe Ange, and I have a certain amount of sympathy for him to a degree, we're too open. We play in the same way all the time. When the going gets tough, players go missing. You know, Rick, I almost feel like a record sometimes. Average wages equals average players equals mainly average performances. And the club did well to get £500,000 a week off their wage bill in the summer. But what did they give the manager, Rick? They didn't support the manager. They gave him one first-team player, Dom Solanke, and they gave him a load of kids. Now, none of us, I think, would agree that that is supporting Ange Postecoglou. And we all know with Ange that his honeymoon was a long while ago. But it does feel that the door to Daniel Levy's divorce court is ajar now. And if we don't win against Southampton, I've got a horrible feeling for Ange that those doors on that divorce court are going to be wide open. But it's going to be interesting what our listeners and our viewers and my fellow panelists think about that as we go forward. But I tell you what, to go back, and I thought Crackers was absolutely brilliant on this. And I agree with him. I know of no other business where repeated failure in the principal vocation of that business does not result in the removal of the people at the top. Now, the people at the top, Daniel Levy and fellow board members, because of the way it's set up and the control that the Lewis family still have with Enoch, and Daniel Levy, of course, significant shareholder, it is not like, in many ways, an ordinary company board where the shareholders can all get together and go, do you know what, the chairman's got to go. It isn't working out. It's not like a telecommunications company or a food company or an airline where people say this is just not working. It's on your head, Mrs. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, you've got to go. This football club of ours has a board, in inverted commas, that are sitting tenants until such time as they decide that they're going to sell the club. And there's only two ways that they're going to sell the club. One is they're going to see huge pound signs and think, well, that was good. And we don't care what everyone says. Look at the money we've got. Or they will be driven out of the club by the supporters of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And there's an awful lot of our viewers and listeners and people who interact with us on social media who have absolutely had it with the board now. Because the problem is that if Ange Postecoglou does go, and he might not, but if he does, then they bring in another manager, rinse and repeat. You know, already they're talking about Areola at Bournemouth. Kieran McKenna's name has come up. So there's obviously chats going on. I'm not saying with these individuals, but is it going to solve anything getting rid of Ange Postecoglou, who I think could reasonably argue has not been supported by the club themselves? Now, we know what his tactics are like. We know it's the way I do things, mate, and all that. And we'll probably come on and have a look at that a little bit later on in relation to the game. But at the end of the day, it is quite unbelievable that these people are not answerable to anybody for repeated failure in the core business of our football club, which is the game of association football. You know, to get to one Champions League final, fantastic. But to buy the players watches for getting there, instead of saying, we're going to get you all a watch, boys, if you win, and you can win, it's the whole mentality of the club that doesn't sit right with so many of the fans. And they are not reading the stadium. They are not reading social media. They are completely oblivious, in inverted commas, to what people really think. Either that, or even worse, they simply don't care.
Spot on. Look, I think for the sake of, we've got so much to get to on this show. Crackers, anything you want to add?
Rick,
finally?
yes. As you said, the club is a mess. The football is a mess. This is the problem we have. The club isn't a mess. The club's doing very nicely. Thank you very much. I'll offer you a scenario. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m, there'll probably be some sort of Zoom call between the board and whoever looks after the hospitality and the bars and the club shop, etc., etc. And you'll probably find Daniel Levy will phone through and he'll say, okay, East Stand manager, how many pints of lager did you sell yesterday at the event? And he'll come back and say, well, 18,500. And said manager will say, terrible, isn't it, really, that result? And Daniel will probably say, yeah, we normally sell 22,000 pints of lager. And the East Ham manager will say, no, I was talking about the football. What? The football, the score, 3-4. Oh, yeah. Terrible business. Anyway, on with the show. Club Shop, how did you do yesterday? And that's the metric that he measures, that they look at. That's where they are with it. How many pints have we sold? How many shirts have we sold? How many hot dogs? How many this? How many that? That's their metric. And all the time that that's doing well, then the football is kind of a here and now, really. The concerts, the NFL, that's their metric. That's what's not a mess, and that's what they worry about. So the football being a bit of a mess, a lot of a mess actually, has been overtaken. It's a lost leader now within a bigger business empire. So until such times as their revenue streams are actually affected to a critical point, thank you very much. We're doing very, very nicely. Thank you. And that's so the football being a mess is neither here nor there to them, because it's the bottom lines and the balance sheets. That's what they worry about. Once that gets affected, then watch things change. But
We've done a half an hour on this show. We've barely spoke about the game, and we're speaking about the club off the pitch, which kind of summarises where we are. What we are going to do now, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio, and then we're going to focus what's going on the pitch. Now, as I discussed at the top end of the show, in terms of the table now and where Spurs find themselves in, just before we hear from Ange Postecoglou, Tottenham are currently placed 11th in the Premier League. I will say that again. Tottenham are 11th in the Premier League. They have 20 points from the opening 15 games in the Premier League. They are currently 7 points off the current top four. They are, as things stand, still 15 points off the very, very top of the Premier League table. And they're also, for those that may have some concerns, not that we should be worried, I think, immediately about this, but they're also 10 points off the relegation zone at the moment. So look, before we get into where we are on Ange Postecoglou, let's hear from the man. We are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Coming next, we're going to bring you Ange Postecoglou, who gives you his thoughts of that game against Chelsea and where we go next. We'll be back with you in just a second.
Game of football, and coaches don't normally like chaos, really. What are your feelings about it just now?
Yeah, it's a little bit of not a little bit. It's a sore one. It's a painful one. We started the game really well, and as our season's been going, we lose Romero after 20 minutes, and that disrupts us a little bit, and they sort of score straight after. And then I thought we had our moments. We had some really good chances to get our third, and at half time we were kind of still in a decent position. That second half was a bit of a ding dong, especially at the start. Obviously they scored, but then we've got a big chance at 2-2 with Sonny to go 3-2 up. Don't take it, and then and I thought both penalties were poor decisions by us. We just had to maintain some discipline in those areas because we were always a threat the other way. And I guess in the end, the critical moments got us.
Both sides had problems defensively today, didn't they? I mean, it was an unusual game in that there were so many opportunities.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think there was quality opportunities. I'm not sure there was an abundance. I mean, I don't remember keepers making massive saves, I think. But there was, they're a good side. They're a top quality team. And, I thought we more than matched it with them in that department. But, when you've got quality out there, you're always going to create moments. Like I said, we've given 2 penalties away, so there's 2 goals. I think there was some things we could have done better for sure. But I thought, it was a pretty good game of football in terms of the quality out there. But like I said, in the critical moments, unfortunately, we let ourselves down.
I've never really known you want to talk about officials, but there was a challenge from Caicedo on Sarr in the first half, which I don't think if it had been a red card, I don't think anyone would have been complaining about that decision.
Yeah, but that's what's happening with the game now. I think referees are just leaving it to other powers that be to make decisions. And, there's a couple that didn't go our way today. I thought, Decky was through on the linesman's put his flag up, which I thought was bizarre as well. So, but, we just, I guess nothing we can do about that. That's out of our control.
And just have to talk about the 3 injuries which you picked up in the game, which are obviously 2 big defenders who were returning today for you, and then Brennan Johnson, who's been a contender for one of your best players of the season.
Yeah, look, obviously Romero was really disappointing for us. He felt something in his quad, which, pretty much after 20 minutes, so he couldn't continue. Brennan just wasn't well. Wasn't well at half time. He tried to go out there, but he just wasn't feeling well. And Nicky, just a bit of tightness. Plan was always to sort of play him 60-70 today, but obviously with Romero going down, we thought Christian was the one that was probably more equipped to play the 90. Kind of hamstrung us a little bit, but hopefully Nicky should be okay.
So there you go. That was Ange Postecoglou's thoughts there post-match on that defeat to Chelsea in the Premier League. Look, like I say, for us now, it's a case that there's a lot to discuss on this show still with regards to the manager, which currently at the moment is dividing the fan base. And I think this is what I will just say that, I made this at the very, very top of the show, and I'll say this again. We want to try and make the shows as enjoyable and watchable as possible. And I don't want to drain the audience. I don't want to drain the listeners and viewers that give so much time up, to come and watch this show, that sacrifice time with family and friends that have just come back from the stadium. But I would be, doing you amazing guys a disservice if we don't get into the difficulty of some of the discussions that we need to have. And I am acutely aware that what we're seeing right now is not all on the manager. But I have to say that the players, the coaching staff, and most importantly, the board here, need to take some accountability. We are currently, as we record right now, 24 days away from the transfer window opening, 23 for our listeners on audio. And, let's be honest about it. If they aren't prepared to back Ange Postecoglou with the significant funds, what is the point? What is the point? We need players that are going to genuinely improve the starting 11. And I'm also very conscious that there are a lot of fans that are listening and watching this show, but saying, but Rick, hold on, would you actually be giving this manager more money? And I think, can I just to come back to that point, say first off that, like a lot of managers at Tottenham, they don't get the players they want. They are given players to work with. And that is the difference when it comes to the way Spurs operate their business with some other clubs out there. But look, we have to get into the crux of where Tottenham are right now in terms of their position in the league and Postecoglou's future, which is a big, big talking point right now. TJ, if I can open up with you on this, Tottenham now sit in 11th place after 15 games. The crazy thing about this, actually, is that when you look at the table, the highest goal difference in the Premier League this season, you've got 18 plus for Liverpool, 17 plus for Chelsea, 14 plus for Arsenal, and then Tottenham are next with plus 12 goal difference in 11th. Now, you know what? I have to say this one thing that might upset some viewers and listeners out there, that Ange Postecoglou, whatever you think about him, there seems to be a feeling amongst the Spurs fan base that why is Ange the final boss? And if he goes, we simply can't get any better. And that's not me saying that this is all Ange Postecoglou's fault, because I will just say I don't believe it is all Ange Postecoglou's fault. But when you look at the case, TJ, 60 points from 43 matches. Let me just say that again. 60 points from 43 matches. Since last season's fixture versus Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspur have now lost more Premier League games than Ange Postecoglou has won. Tottenham in the Premier League since that home defeat to Chelsea last November, 43, I believe, Premier League matches. They've played 20. They've won 19. They've lost 20. 82 goals scored, 70 goals conceded. And on average, if you're looking at those points overall, That's 56 points on average to what Spurs have got so far in Ange's tenure. We know, of course, they've only taken 2 points from the 18 vs Palace, Ipswich, Fulham, Leicester, Brighton, Bournemouth, all in different circumstances, to be very, very clear. And they've only just kept 3 clean sheets in the Premier League all season. One against the champions Man City in that unbelievable win, and it was unbelievable. One against Everton and one against 10-men Manchester United. And in 13 out of the 17 home games in 2024, Spurs have conceded first. TJ, I'm not asking for your defence. I'm not asking for you to sit here and give me your reasons as to why Ange Postecoglou has to stay or should stay, or, you know, there's a thing about Ange in or Ange out here. But there is a serious conversation that has to be asked about where we are under his current project. Because if the ball aren't going to go anywhere, the only thing that we can see changing as fans, they're not going to get rid of 20 players. So it is always the manager's head that is on the chopping block. So where are we in regards to Ange at the moment in his Tottenham tenureship?
I mean, listen, he's in a very precarious position. I think he knows that. We all know that. My position on Ange, what I don't agree with is that he's out of his depth. I don't agree with that. I just think he's been in the game too long. He's too much of an intelligent man, I believe, to be out of his depth. Is he stubborn with his tactics? Yes. Does he often make substitutions too late? Yes. I don't think he's tactically inept. I also don't think that he plays the same system all the time, because I've seen him play in different systems. For me, it's very difficult to judge any manager if you're only given a certain amount of money to enter into the transfer market. And again, to Cracker's point, to Russ's point, to your point, Rick, to, again, the thousands of people that take the time to watch and listen to this show religiously, as well they should. It's a terrific show. But how can we really judge anybody who's not given the money to afford the players that they want to bring in? Just before we came on air, right, I was having a chat with Crackers about the minute differences in between being a good football team, a great football team, an elite football team, and then a winning football team. You know, those margins, they're so tiny. And we have spoken for decades, let's be honest, about the fragility, the mentality of this club. It doesn't have winning DNA. It just doesn't. So how do we change that? And I think by having somebody like Pedro Neto, who's an exceptional talent, who's absolutely lit up the Chelsea squad. And listen, they have a plethora of top tiered, price-wise players, and yet he walked straight into that team and gave them a completely different shift in dimension. He could have come to Tottenham, but then we respond with the Tottenham doesn't pay. The fact that quote exists drives me insane. We're the most profitable football team on the planet. When does that change? When does this idea that, and I promise you, man, it's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt us into the future if an elite player is out there in Tottenham sniffing about, whether we do decide to pay or not. Why the hell would they come to Tottenham? So there's a player that I really like. Is it Cherkis? Is it Cherkit, the kid who plays right back at Bournemouth? Right? Really like him. And I'm like, oh man, he'd be such a great player to bring into Tottenham. Well, now I hear that Liverpool are interested. So where are you going? You're going to the team that's going to pay you more, the team that's going to pay a higher transfer fee, and the team that's won the Champions League time and time again, just won the Premier League and are probably going to win it again this season, or you're going to come to Tottenham. Like, these are the problems that we have, man. And that has to be changed. We need to make some statement signings. Why is it that we are the club that never buys a player from another Big Six club? Why did Chelsea manage to buy, what's his chops, the amazing kid? It's just, his name's just gone out of my head, from City, the kid, Palmer. Why doesn't he come to, why does Chelsea get to buy Jadon Sancho from United? Why do those clubs all do business with each other and we don't do business with them? Why do we ship players off to United? But why don't we go, you know what, man, Marcus Rashford will buy you. He's 27 years old. He can still do the business. You know, that would be a statement signing. Arsenal needed to sign Declan Rice and they did. We don't do that.
All fair points. Can I just say, what you're saying here is absolutely all fair points when it comes to the nature of the player recruitment and the wages. But I'm going to go around and Russ in a second.
So let me come back to Ange. No, you're right, to get me back on track. I don't think we can judge him if he's not given the players that he wants. So for me, it doesn't make sense to sack him now. 14 managers in 23 years. It doesn't. I promise you, I bet there are people out there who would be going, he's doing a really good job, who we could bring in. I like that manager at Nottingham Forest. Aren't they doing well? But it's Nuno Espirito Santo, and we've had him before, so we're not having those conversations. I don't see Ricky and thank you for getting me back on track, man, because, obviously I'm feeling it today. I'm emotional. I don't think that sacking Ange and bringing in another manager, I don't know who that manager is. Is it Graham Potter? I don't know who we can bring in that can improve this team with the players that we have and with the squad that we have. I don't see who that is. I think it could be Ange, but the players need to step up and take some responsibility.
The problem is, just on this point, and again, we've got loads of questions that come in here. I mean, Daniel Leave Me says, our league position reflects the ambition of the board and the capability of the management. We reap what we sow. Brando says here, Napoli brought in Conte and he told them what he needed to be successful. The club gave it to him. He was back. Now look at Napoli. Yeah. Huey says here, Levy the issue. Ange with Chelsea's squad absolutely smashes it. Brando says here again, Ange in, but I think Ange has to adapt. 2-0 in the SPFL is not 2-0 up in the Premier League. Depth is a problem. With a fragile back line, slow the game down. TJ says here, another TJ, listen, TJ here says 120 shots in total against us in the last 7 games. We have had 53. What does that say about our tactics? And, I'll come round to you, Russ, on this point.
Yeah.
And can I just make it very, very clear? And I've said this now a number of times. I do not think Ange Postecoglou is the main problem at Tottenham. I don't. But the problem is that stats are facts and stats have no emotion and stats don't lie, right? Data, unfortunately, is one of those things where it's in your face. But I will give an opinion piece on this that does frustrate me. Look, we haven't discussed the game yet, but my concern is, Russ, that we don't track runners. We are really poor from set pieces, although they've been better this season. We never slow the game down when we need to. We can't get the spacing right between the players. And it just seems like the players don't want to defend. And you end up with, as we're going to come on to in the show, 2 penalty decisions that, quite frankly, you simply just can't argue about. The players are ill-disciplined. It doesn't appear that they are taking on instruction. They're listening to the manager. And my worry is, to go back to TJ's point there about, but who else is going to work under this ownership? The reality is this board stumbled upon, if you remember at the time, Mauricio Pochettino, because they went after Louis van Gaal and they failed. They stumbled on Martin Jol because they went for Jacques Santini and Jacques Santini walked away from the football club. So the reality is that any appointment, I don't even call them a success, because in reality, we haven't really won anything in any great length under ENIC. Every time they've gone for a manager, let's be honest about it, that they've thought and put trust into, it's never quite worked out. It's always been those second options or third options that have done seemingly okay at Tottenham. Now, where I am in terms of the manager is that you're going to have to get the very, very best out of this playing squad. You're going to have to absolutely drain that, what's the word I'm looking for? That sponge, right, out of the squad to get the maximum out of it. And the question that many will ask is that when you hear and you see some of the stats out of there, take Ange away for a second. I say take him away for a second. Is he getting the absolute maximum out of this squad for you? Even with the injuries, can I just say, I know we've got a lot of injuries right now. You can't discount them. Yeah. You can't, but is he getting the maximum out of this squad for you?
Yeah, but... Crackers was doing an old saying earlier, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. If you've only got 3 or 4 top quality players and you've got a number of players who are good professionals, maybe average, some with potential, you cannot play, as somebody said, I think it was TJ, or maybe it was you, Rick, if you've got the quality of players that Chelsea have got, and incidentally, it's the club that buy the players, and then they discuss who's going to be the manager, by the way. We are completely and utterly different, as we all know. And I sit with you, Rick, but an awful lot of our fans, they, Ange is often, accused of being a one-trick pony, isn't he? Well, more and more of them think he's a no-trick pony now. And, a lot of them think it's probably time to move on. You have covered there exactly what that means for us. And we mustn't forget that when they were looking at Postecoglou and offered him the job, Bruno Amorim was very, very much in the discussion to come into our football club. We were linked with Eric Ten Hag. Yes, we might have dodged a bullet there. Who knows? And one or two others. But Stevie B, 1962, just gave me some facts about our manager from when he was in Japan at Yokohama, a club that's owned by Nissan, incidentally, which means they've got a lot of money. The manager before him finished 5th in the league out there and got fired. So Ange came in, finished 12th, and said it's a project. That's what he actually said. 18-team league, goal difference 0, 56 scored, 56 conceded. Season 2, big investment. He got all the players he wanted, won the league by 6 points, no cups won, but conceded the most amount of goals, his side, Yokohama, than any club in the top 7 in the league. Season 3, trained the players into the ground in pre-season. They finished 9th, scored 69, conceded 59, didn't qualify for the Emperor's Cup, which is a bit like not qualifying at all for the FA Cup, competition of great tradition in Japan. And then along came Celtic, who must have thought to themselves, well, you know, this kind of football, you know, it's a one-team league at best 2. This is going to suit us. And it worked out well for them. And Tottenham knew the way that Ange Postecoglou believed in playing football. So that's what they saw in him. But you have to maybe, and the doubters will be going, yes, now, about Ange, what did they really see in that type of football with their knowledge, if they have any, of how football is played at the top level of the Premier League in England, the world's most entertaining league, quite possibly the best league in the world. Who decided that Ange's type of football was going to work in the Premier League? Because from where we're all sitting right now, apart from the first 10, 11 games in the first season, it hasn't gone well at all. And I think that is his Achilles heel, Rick. And, you know, would I love him to see it through and be given the tools that he should be given, i.e. top players? He's never going to get it at Spurs because it's the club will not buy top players for the benefit of the club, irrespective of who the manager is, unlike other top clubs. I think it's as simple as that. So he can't deliver the football philosophy that he believes in, however naive some of us may think it is when we watch our club play. When it works, it's so bloody exciting. It's edge of the seat stuff. We were WhatsApping today, Rick. It's chaos, and it frightens the life out of you. We all
Russ,
knew what was going to happen. You know,
is it sustainable chaos? Can you just to come back on your point there? Is it sustainable chaos?
No, no. If we keep playing like that against the big clubs and keep losing to the Ipswiches of this world, he cannot possibly survive. It's impossible.
The problem is, I just think the way Tottenham are set up structurally, and we covered this in the first part of the show, is that they need a manager that is somehow going to get the absolute maximum out of every single footballer. Going back to Maurizio's time at the club in season 2, 3, and 4, where he coached the players, where you could see progression week upon week upon week. You saw that with the players that were involved in the England squad. You saw that with the players like Dembele, if you remember. You know, Wanyama. There were so many players from Min-Son, Dele Alli, Harry Kane, Kyle Walker, Danny Rose. You know, here I'm going off now. But you understand my point that you could see incremental progress in each individual player under Maurizio Pochettino. Maybe that is unfair of me to look at Ange in season 2 and expect that. But I would have hoped, Cracks, coming over to you, that where we are right now in December, although we've had, can I just be very, very clear, some unbelievable wins. The Villa win was superb. The City win was brilliant. The Aston Villa performance was great. But the lows of, like I said, I can't avoid the fact that when I look simply alone at the fact that we've taken 2 points from Palace, Ipswich, Fulham, Leicester, Brighton, Bournemouth, I'd be doing a disservice to all the viewers and listeners on this show if we were not to address this current concern. And believe me, the players don't get away with this. there's been so many players that have let him down. Bissouma, massively letting him down today. Not for the first time. Pat Matasar, as much as I think Pat Matasar will be on to be a great player for Tottenham, please God, if we keep him here. And I think he will be a great player, Pat. That was indefensible to give away a penalty the way he did. We'll come on to it shortly, but what that does to a manager is it puts him under even more pressure because it gives an outlook, Cracks, that these players aren't listening to him and the discipline is killing him. I don't think, and I'll be honest with you, if we sack him, we'll be in this same conversation in 12, 18, 24, 36 months' time, talking about the same situation and the same manager and the same problems they face with the playing squad, with the board, the hierarchy. But at the same time, when we're feeling like this as fans, something you feel has to change. So where are we, Cracks, in your mind on that tipping point? Because I want to be clear, this is not to try and target Ange or to ridicule him at all, but just where we are right now, position-wise, playing-wise, squandering leads, we have to remember our standards as a football club. We're Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Please, everybody out there, remember our standards. The game is about glory. Yes, the board don't believe in glory. We've got a cup quarter-final round the corner. We've got a decent draw in the FA Cup. Please, God, I know it might be a banana skin saying it where we could progress. We've got the Europa League to come. We could still have a great season ahead of us here, Crack. So tell me what you're feeling about the manager at the moment.
Rick, listen, everything comes back down to the board, like we've said. Yeah, it's all with new managers. All we're doing is putting sticking plasters on a boil that needs lancing, and that boil is ENIC. Until that's cut out and dealt with, then every sticking plaster we bring in, and that like everyone before, works to a point. It's the quality of sticking plaster that you put over it and how long it lasts for, isn't it? Look, as much as I lay the blame squarely on the board, we also have to be realistic and know that they're not going anywhere until such time as they get a price, the price that they want for that club. Now, if the fans were to actually come together and really bear some pressure on the board, that may hasten it. But like the great Simon Jordan always says, I've never met a billionaire who's been told what to do. So please do bear that in mind. So let's work on the basis that this board are going to be here until they get the price that they want. Come what may. We can all out of principle want them gone and protest or do whatever it is that we want to, but that comes down to people coming together to get that. So that brings us to the manager. I don't believe that this manager is getting what he could get out of this squad. No, even given this squad's deficiencies, and there is deficiencies, I think that there is managers out there, and I have always thought this for quite a while now. I've given him a chance. I just don't see him getting any better than this. I think you're going to see what we're seeing now in perpetuality. I think you'll see these games where we get something and you think, yeah, here we go, and then you go and lose a Palace. You know, it's even if we'd have won today, we'd have been cock a hoop with that. But you just know that the next Bournemouth away or the Ipswich at home or the Southampton or is coming. It just seems to be highs and lows and highs and lows. He's just not pragmatic enough for me, Rick. It's just, I think there is people out there that could actually make a better chicken soup out of the chicken shit that we've got, like Poch did to a degree. He's just not the right fit as a manager for what we need with the quality of player that this club will bring in. So for me, no, I think there is better managers. But the problem you get with that then, Rick, is if you do bring somebody in that does improve results, that then takes the pressure off the board. You know, it is literally just another bulletproof vest, another human shield that comes in for a while to take the pressure off of them. So ultimately, you've got to deal with the issue of the way the club is run by Enoch and by Daniel Levy, because we will get 18 months, 2 years down the line with a new manager who is getting better results and better performances, but they will always be operating within that glass box, within those constraints that the club puts on them.
Just on this point now, look, like I said, everyone's at different tipping points with regards to the board, with regards to the manager, with regards to the playing squad. I think what we have to bring it back to is that point is that we're now coming into nearly mid-December. Like I say, we've got a fairly, exciting Carabao Cup quarterfinals to come. And it might not feel exciting right now for fans. I get that because of the result we've just had. We've got a huge game against Manchester United. If I'm going to be honest with you, they're just as much as a circus as we are right now. They've just parted company with Dan Ashworth. I mean, I know it sounds silly when you say, is there any other club out there that can make us look worse? Man United go, hold my beer. And literally, unbelievably, they seem to be worse than us in terms of their own decision-making. But at the same time, the key thing being asked here, which is I want to get to this point, is that we're at a point now where we do need to start getting results, right? And it's whether we feel that Ange Postecoglou deserves to be given more money and for him to get better caliber players to get us out of this position that we're in. So, Cracks, just come back to me on that point, because we'll just come round on that point and then we will, like I say, come back on the game, because I think we have to bring it back to this point right now that whatever people say about football, this is a results-based business. So where are you on that point when it comes to essentially results, the caliber of players that he's got to work with? Do you feel given more money that this could get better under Ange, or do you feel that we are regressing and we may need to make a change? And although we know what we're going to say, that if making a change, we'll be in the same situation in the next 24, 12, 6 months. This is what Tottenham do. This is what Tottenham are as a club, Cracks. Where are you on that point?
Sorry, Rick, I completely lost you then. It just completely froze up. Could you go again with that, please?
Of course I can. Where are you on the point that if it comes to giving more Ange more money, would that, do you feel, with better players, basically, hopefully display better results?
Oh, that's crystal ball stuff, isn't it, Rick? I think much of football now is how much money you put in and the players that you get. You do need the manager to be able to coach elite players. You probably would get better results because you've got better players. Would you be able to get those to their elite level and what they could potentially get to? Then I suppose that's the $1 million question. Again, I'm not too sure on that, Rick. But if you buy elite players, you do get better performances because they just perform for themselves. So that's a tough one to answer. But I do think no matter, even if he does get a more elite player, I think there's managers out there that could manage those players better. I don't see him as an elite manager, to be honest, whatever, at this sort of Premier League level. He's not for me.
Russ, let me come around to you and ask you on that point, if I can.
Right.
Actually, before I do, Cracks, on that basis, then, are you saying, just to be very, very clear, Cracks, would you sack him now? Or would you wait until the end of the season to review that?
Well, I think a lot of that comes down to who else is available. You know, there's no point jumping for the sake of jumping, is there? If there's somebody else in a job that you can't get at the moment, then no. But if somebody comes along that you think could actually take you somewhere better, then yes, I think that's always been the way with football and any club where the team's struggling.
Do you see anyone out there for you right now, just to be clear on this point, before I come to Russ and we close on TJ on this subject, do you see anybody out there right now that you feel, if they come in straight away, could get an immediate uplift in regards to this squad and the players when it comes to getting better performances? Is there anybody out there you see for you?
I would have Iriola as a better man manager and a better performance manager than him. Michel at Girona, a few people have actually said, if available, I think would probably take us to better places. But yeah, so there is. But would they come now? That's the $1 million question. If not, then you get to the end of the season and then make a decision from there, I think, Rick.
Okay, just to be very, very clear before I bring Russ in here, our currently injury list that Ange has been really hamstrung since the beginning of this season, and even, dare I say, several points of last season. We've currently got Mikey Moore, Vicario, Davis, Romero, again injured. Yep. Odebear, Richarlison, Johnson out. I'm not sitting here trying to make excuses for Ange Postecoglou. I can only ask the questions that hopefully many would want the answers to on this show. And again, I'll make that point. I said it midway through the show that it does feel, Russ, in some people's minds that Ange Postecoglou is kind of almost like the final boss. We can't do any better, and therefore we just have to keep with him, because what's the point in changing managers again to just then do the same process in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months? If that was the case, we'd just be sticking with the same manager and nobody would change. I mean, where are you, Russ, at the moment in regards to that tipping scale in relation to Ange Postecoglou for you?
Well, look, I think the image of, Crackers was talking about Ange's image. The image of our club amongst the other Premier League clubs is, we're playing Spurs. I reckon we can get something against them, because they know that we play football and how we can collapse and how rare a Man City or Aston Villa result is. So that's the image that we've got. I mean, on Ange Postecoglou, I wouldn't sack him today, but I honestly think that if we lose to Southampton, then he will be gone. I think it's as clear cut as that, because you can imagine where we would be in the league then, and they would be 3 points closer from the bottom. And I think it would be unacceptable. And, a thumping loss to Manchester United in the quarterfinal of the League Cup could have the same effect. I mean, I think the ice is extremely thin for him, and it's difficult to see him being able to get across the other side of the lake without falling in the water.
Okay. TJ, we'll close on you on this subject. I know it's not easy right now, like I say, having to discuss this. And, at the same time, I'll make it abundantly clear that I think I've just said throughout this show that we're well aware that we'll probably be talking about the same situation in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months if we do sack the manager, because as you know, with Tottenham, they don't give the manager the tools they want to do the job or need to do the job. So therefore, I feel like we're in that situation again where with any manager Spurs hire, just to be very, very clear, they are going to have to get the absolute maximum out of every single player in the squad to stand any chance, absolutely any chance of getting Tottenham to a place again where Maurizio did. And it's even harder now. I hate to say this. It's a better City. Although City are going for a bit of a turmoil right now. I'm talking about City in relative terms. Better City, better Liverpool, better Arsenal. The Chelsea in terms of where we are right now. The league has got better. Villa are better. I know Newcastle are going for a bit of a stumble right now. It's a different time to when Maurizio Pochettino was here. But do you feel, TJ, with funds, with better players, and can get Tottenham up that league higher? And the most important thing, getting more consistent results?
The short answer is yes. A more prolonged answer would be, we've got to try. I think it would be remiss to fire somebody if you've only given them a Skoda and you want it to run like a Ferrari. It's just not fair. And again, Crackers talked about pragmatism and realism, and I really understand, and I feel the same as millions of Tottenham fans out there who feel a complete disconnect with their club right now. And so doing something, because the thing is that we fans, we often feel so helpless. We don't have a kind of direct influence. We can't go in there into the dressing room and, give the players the hairdryer, or walk into the board and, give Levy what's for, or whatever it is. We can't do that. And so what we feel that we can do is say, well, let's fire somebody. And the easiest person to fire, because we can't fire Daniel Levy or Joe Lewis or any of the Unique board, we can't fire them, but we can say, well, let's fire the manager. And so if we do give him better players, to Cracker's point, there has to be an uptick. There has to be. So if you look at Chelsea this season, that squad is what? 1.3 billion, that squad. And so their new manager has come in and inherited a Chelsea team, not in turmoil, but certainly in flux since the departure of Abramovich. But look at these players that he has. You know, he's just got a myriad of top quality, top draw players, and we just don't. And so it's almost impossible to judge this man's ability given the players and the squad that he has, and then couple all of those injuries, you know, a bunch of first team player injuries. And I was talking to a really good friend of mine, lovely lad, Tom Kavanagh, his name. He's a Tottenham boy, you know, from home. He lives here, lives around the corner. Lovely, lovely man, great player as well. And I was talking to him earlier about these injuries. I also have a bit of a theory that a lot of injured players at Tottenham, I'm not saying they're feigning injury, but I don't think they're killing themselves to get back because they don't feel like they're part of a winning team. I think with Pedro Neto, like people were saying, oh, you know, he's injured a lot of the time. I think, again, a lot of those injuries at Wolves were because he was a Rolls Royce of a player playing at, no disrespect to Wolves, a mid to bottom tier team. And so if you do pick up a little knock, it's just like, I can't be asked to kill myself in training and go to 3 or 4 physio sessions a day. I'll just do the bare minimum. I'm not saying our players are faking it. I'm not saying that for a second. I don't want that to be misinterpreted. So I want to be very clear there. However, if you feel like you're part of a team that's going to go on and win and challenge for things and you get injured, you're like, God damn it, I have to get back into this team because I want to be one of the ones when we get our medal at the end of the season. I want to be one of the ones who knows I was playing for most of those games. And I think that also hurts us. So no, don't fire Ange now. Please give him some money in January. I know it's difficult in the middle of the season. Please, please, please. And if there is some quality signings that would be prepared to come to Tottenham, let's do everything we possibly can to get them through the door because we are bleeding right now and we have to stem the bleed.
Okay. TJ, thank you so much. Look, guys, tough conversations to have pretty much since the start of the show. I want to say a massive thank you. We are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. There's nearly over 10,000 of you that are watching this show live. Thanks so much, as always, for the incredible support for the show. Can I be quite frank and just say this? You know, if the board showed an element of the support you give us here on Last Word on Spurs, I mean, God, what a football club we'd be, quite frankly. We'd be up there challenging for titles like you have given us the opportunity to in terms of the podcast world and how you've made us multi-award winners. It's just a shame, like I say, we don't see that from our own club. I'm joined by Compere Entertainment's host, Richard Cracknell, the amazing Richard Cracknell. I'm joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams on this Last Word on Spurs. I'm joined by actor TJ Ramini that I've tried to guide you through, steer you through all things Tottenham on this show, where it hasn't been easy, let's be honest about it. And we're going to have to turn our attention to the absolute mad game of football, where I think many, like I say, would maybe have forgot we had a game because of the nature, really, of, you know, where we've had to go to and from today. Before I do, let's take a break for a second. A reminder, we are sponsored by NordVPN. Nord have been our direct sponsors for the last 4 or 5 years on this show. We're blessed to have them as our sponsors, our partners on Last Word on Spurs. Like I say, if you're going on European journeys, if you're going around the world and you're looking to save some discount, whether that's accommodation, whether it's flights, whether it's trying to watch your favourite shows back in the UK, you can do that by using NordVPN's device that they've got out there for you. We give you 4 extra months for free on a 2-year plan. There is no risk with Nord's 30-day back money guarantee. And of course, you'll be supporting the pod by going with Nord. Thank you so much. Right. This feels like a long, long time ago now for those that are on the rerun and watching this, but we were in quite a decent amount of spirit before the game, which I know you're thinking, hold on a second, what, I'm going back before the game now. We were in a very decent amount of spirit. Now, we heard the news beforehand that somehow, incredibly, Spurs were keeping quiet the return of Mickey van der Ven, where Spurs made 4 changes against Chelsea. Romero did come back, then went off again. We'll cover that in a second. There was a surprise return for Mickey van der Ven as the two lined up together. Elsewhere in that team, Postecoglou put James Maddison back on the bench, with Dejan Kulusevski stepping into midfield, and said on the return at the time, which feels like a long time ago now, for both Mickey and for Christian Romero, that it's a welcome boost. Romero was close. Mickey, we kind of thought probably next Thursday, but he trained really well. Both were keen to play. And obviously with us losing Ben in midweek, it was a good opportunity to get them both out there, and obviously a boost to have both of those important players available. Now, in terms of the rest of how that team lined up for Tottenham, we are still without, just to be very, very clear, Guillermo Vicario, Richarlison, Wilson Odobert, Mikey Moore, and the suspended Rodrigo Bentancur. And that's with Ben Davies also added to that list after that hamstring injury against Bournemouth. You can probably add Romero back in there now too, because we'll come on to Ange Postecoglou's comments on the game. Our team lined up for this one, to be very clear, with Forster, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Doggy, Sarr, Bissouma, Kulusevski, Johnson, Solanke, Son, with a bench of Austin, Spence, Regulion. I've done a jar wobble there. Regulion. It's been stuck in my head since Thursday, the wonderful jar wobble. Regulon, should I say. Dragusin, where did that come from? This club will kill me. It will kill me. Gray, Bergvall, Madison, Werner, Lancashire. It kind of says because Jar Wobble was voice noted me ahead of the show, and I've got to reply back to him. I've come out Regulion. What's going on? That's the most you'll see me laugh during the show, I promise, guys. Forgive me that laugh, please. I shouldn't be laughing. I should be crying. Dominic Solanke got Spurs off to the perfect start. What have I done to this panel? Cucurella slipping. Johnson picking up the ball once again, and Spurs really with the perfect start they could ask for during the game. Solanke did really well to get down the front of his man to power the cross home. Tottenham's earliest ever Premier League goal against Chelsea at 4 minutes, 45 seconds. Russ, that start, was you surprised? We flew out the box.
No.
We flew out the box. We flew out the box, to be fair. We flew out the box.
It's always possible with us. And I thought that Dom Solanke in the first half I thought it was the best half of football he'd played for us, actually. I thought he was really, really good. Brennan's cross looked as though it wasn't quite good enough, but Solanke's movement was fantastic. And what a finish. And I was really pleased for him because I've said on this show, as you know, Rick, come on, Dom, it's about goals, 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 not only running, but he was tremendous centre-forward play in the first half today. So it was a great start. And we were lucky, weren't we, Rick? We could build on it and get a second. It was great.
I do agree. It was the perfect start for Tottenham. Like I say, Dominic Solanke, that goal against Chelsea, as I mentioned, our earliest ever goal against Chelsea in the Premier League. Soon after, Spurs, I know it feels like a long time ago now, they went 2-0 up. Dejan Kulusevski making it 2-0. Cucurella slipping once again. Johnson picking up the ball. Porro feeding Kulusevski, and he ran inside and hit a lovely low effort into the right-hand post, similar to his goal against West Ham United, it has to be said. And for Cucurella, he was really having a mare. Like I said, not slipping once, but twice in the build-up to the Tottenham goals, prompted him to change his boots. And forgive me, I think it was TJ that said this earlier, TJ, that when Spurs went 2-0 up, he wasn't doing cartwheels. He wasn't going absolutely crazy because you know what Tottenham are like. Is that fair, TJ? I'm not putting words in your mouth there.
That was me. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't think that anyone can claim to be some great soothsayer or, genius with a crystal ball to know that even if you're 2-0 up at Tottenham, it doesn't guarantee you anything. Just look at the Brighton game. Obviously, just look at today. It was interesting as well, hearing Ange talking, when we could hear what he was saying. It's very difficult to understand him sometimes, with his looking at the floor and all that kind of thing. But what he was saying is that, the ill discipline at the back really cost us today because we're always going to create chances at the other end. And of course, that's true. The lack of discipline and how many times today I was, my wife went to a friend's earlier this morning. So I was watching the game in here and, I was screaming. I was prancing up and down in the living room and screaming just because of the amount of times that Chelsea weren't great today. And the amount of times that they gave away the ball in our final third and our defenders were able to gain possession again and just gave it straight back to them. It must have happened 20 times, 25 times. Just find a white shirt. And you know what? Sometimes put your laces through it, man. Put your laces through it, send it up into their half. Sanchez is going to kick it back. But by the time that's happened, we've reset, regrouped. Rick, you were texting me saying, bro, they have to calm down. They have to calm
Not
down.
sus-
And I was
not
saying,
sustainable.
we
It's
just
not
need
sustainable.
exactly a sustained spell of possession. Just knock
Yep.
it around. Just sideways. Do some Italian football. Do some catenaccio. Play sideways. Play backwards. Keep the ball.
Yep.
Frustrate them a little bit. With two ahead, you know, do a little bit of that. Exactly. A little bit of this. A little bit of pragmatism. And honestly, our
TJ,
yes,
does
Colin.
that catenaccio come with a regulion sauce on it?
That is an optional extra, but I'll talk
Thanks,
to the
Crack.
chef, see what I can do for you, Mr. Cracknell. You know, you're a repeat customer. We like to keep you happy. But yeah, I mean, listen, the lasagna that you made before the show, the spinach and mushroom lasagna, is the talk of the day. But that's a completely different show. We'll talk about that on something else.
Mamma mia.
But yeah, man, Mamma mia, exactly.
Yeah.
But the defending
Didn't we
today
do
was
that
just
under
appalling.
Conte, by the way?
Our
We did.
defending was appalling. Our passing was appalling. We've got to learn to just possess the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yep.
mean just flying down the wings. Just possess frustrate a team. If you're 2-0 ahead, slow the game and frustrate your opposition. We just didn't do that today, man. It drove me absolutely up the wall.
Yeah, I did. Most certainly did. Like I say, Spurs going 2-0 up. And again, look, I know we've had a disappointing game. We haven't, we've played the way we've played. But I just want to say on Kulusevski, who has probably been one of the very, very few shining lights for Spurs this season. And, in terms of how he's doing generally, he's having a good season by his own individual standards, just to be very, very clear. For Kulu now, he has scored 18 Premier League goals. He has now overtaken Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He has now also contributed 10 GAs via the Premier League Big Six in his career. And he's a player that we've seen, obviously, throughout, definitely this season. He's really, really stepping up for Tottenham. And arguably say one of the very, very few under Ange Postecoglou that really is putting in consistent performance week after week, game after game. Russ, Chelsea do get a goal back. And, just the nature of the way in which we concede this goal. We stand off Sancho, and we allow him to have really a free hit to some degree. Look, you can see there, for those that are watching this show, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 players around Sancho. Nobody really going to press him, to try and stop the shot coming in. And I think we always feared, Russ, by the nature when Chelsea scored, this was going to be a game that wasn't going to be finished with goals. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's very fair to say, but we're used to it now. We can't defend. We're so open. The way that they just bypassed our midfield. And this first goal for Chelsea, individual brilliance from a player, of course, who didn't quite make it at Manchester United, but did when he played over in Germany. He's been part of the England setup, and I thought it was an absolutely tremendous goal. Even though Fraser Forster tried his very best to stop it, can I just say that I think there were so many people who were so worried when Vic got injured. I think he's been absolutely amazing, Fraser Forster. He made 3 or 4 fantastic saves today in that game, and in the previous game and the game before that. And yes, he isn't very good playing the ball out from the back, and we did change it a little bit today. But honestly, I think a shout out for him in a Ben Davis kind of way, because Ben never used to get a shout out much, and I think Fraser deserves a very big pat on the back. I mean, it sounds bizarre when he's letting 4 goals in a game today, but they weren't his fault. But I think he served us well, and isn't he big?
Yeah. He is. Yeah, like I say,
6'7", Russ. 6'7". The Great Wall of Hexham.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lionel Messi actually called him the Great Wall when he played for Celtic versus Barcelona. And Messi actually said one of the best keepers he ever come up against could not put the ball past him one night.
It sounds crazy with the goals.
Excellent.
On that point, Craig, you're saying there, I can't really fault many goals at him so far during this run. He's just been
exactly.
That's all I can say to him. Sorry, we'll have to go to the next incident. I am very conscious of time. Strike out those bingo cards, and we'll try and do this as a panel this next one, because it will cause controversy. Before I bring that into play, there was some lovely interplay between Son and Solanke before the Spurs captain cut inside, curled never just over the bar. There was then a double save from Forster, as Russ touched upon there, from both Palmer and Neto, and then one of the game-changing incidents that might look. Does it change the context of the game? Many have different views on it. Now, we'll start with Cracks on this. Moses Caicedo avoids a red card for a follow-through on Spurs midfielder Pat Matasar. Now, many won't forget the case that Christian Romero got a similar red card during this fixture last season. Now, VAR, we understand, checked the actual incident for a potential red card following that challenge and confirmed the referee's call of no serious foul play. Now, VAR states, this is what VAR came out and said, VAR states that Moses Caicedo lacked excessive force with the challenge on Spurs midfielder Pat Matasar. I think the biggest frustration is, Cracks, which I'm sure you'll be keen to say here, is that it doesn't seem consistent with various other calls. And it just feels that if that was Romero making that challenge, it probably would be a straight red. Has his reputation there to some degree saved him in terms of the player involved? Or can you understand why this wasn't given as a red card?
Not excessive force. So please tell me of the instrument that exists within a player's boot where that feeds back to Stockley Park, and then they can then see how much weight and power was put through his leg when he went in studs up on the shin. I mean, that's a nonsense, non-excessive force. How can you judge that? It's a red all day long. It is a red. I mean, if Romero's was red last season, that's a red. It is a red. It's reckless. It's out of control. It's a potential leg breaker. But we all know Romero's gone because of reputation, and he's survived today. Now, I know that people will be saying, yeah, but Kulu should have gone as well because of the elbow. And he got away with that. So it levels itself out. But does Kulu do what he does and catch him like that if they're down to 10 men and we're all over them and we've nicked another goal because they are down to 10 men? So, it's one doesn't sort of cancel out the other here. That maybe that was a red as well then. But that one was certainly a red card and it never came. So, but this is Tottenham v Chelsea. This is just the story of it, isn't it? And there's always something that comes into play during a Chelsea Tottenham game where this happens. I don't believe in curses and things like that, but man alive, like these incidents, they always seem to be us. They always seem to be versus Chelsea. He should have gone. And if the Kulu incident did actually happen after that red, if in some parallel universe the same thing does happen, he should have really gone, because he had no right to be having his elbow up where it was. So I think Kulu personally is probably quite lucky that not to go, because they couldn't really give that off the back of the first one not being a red as well. But that's a red all day long. Then you just don't know what you're going to get in the game once if they're down to 10 men. So it's a red, Rick. It's a red all day long.
Okay. Just so I'm clear, Cracks, on the Kulu incident, is that a red for you very quickly, Cracks, or not? The Kulu one as well?
Well, no, because the first one isn't. So if you're reffing the game within the context of just the game, the 90 minutes, then no, it isn't. But by the letter of the law, both are reds, really, in my book.
Fine. Let's get the take on the chaps as well before we move on. Still, like I say, got to get through. It feels like a lot here on this last one on Spurs. TJ, will come to you. Both of those for you very quickly. Are they, in your opinion, red cards when you look at both the Cucurella and the Kulusevski incidents? Both red cards?
Of course. I mean, 100%. Caicedo, 100%. And we've seen it before. The lad, what's his name? Curtis Jones at Liverpool was nowhere near as bad as that. And that was a straight red. That's a straight red, man, all day long. Now, this is definitely a straight red as well in the modern game. And some people may be upset with me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Another part of the modern game is that the player needs to sell that. Last season, when Romero goes over the top of the ball, the Chelsea player goes down like there was a sniper in the stands, right? So he goes down like honestly, there was a bolt from the blue, like, God sent a lightning bolt down from heaven and he went down. So if that's what it takes in order to get these decisions and give your team an advantage, you do it. Again, these are professional athletes, right? You're not playing with your friends on a Friday night like I do here. You're getting paid enormous amounts of money to compete in a multi-billion-dollar business. So if you need to go down and grab your leg and writhe around, like the lad did that Kulu hit with his elbow, and he actually grabbed the other side of his head, so it clearly didn't hurt him that badly, but he rolled around on the ground and Kulu didn't get a red, but he should have done. And so this is all part of the modern game. I'm not saying I'm a fan of it, but I'm just saying this is what the modern game is all about. So yes, 100% that's a red, Caicedo, and 100% should have been a red also for Kulu.
Thank you so much, TJ. Russ, final those two incidents before we look to try and move on. We'll bring Russ in on those two. Russ, for you?
I'll give you a very short answer. More utterly embarrassing decisions by PGMOL officials. I mean, there's been a litany of them this season across all the games. And yes, both reds. I don't buy into this. Oh, well, they'll balance it up because they didn't do this. That's not what officiating is all about.
Yeah.
But it happens.
That's very, very fair. Look, just on Romero, who coincidentally, many know, obviously left the field to an injury. I've got to say that Romero, if those missed it early on in the game, what he was trying to do, I mean, just beggars belief. I mean, absolute beggars belief, and head is gone. I've questioned whether he wants to be at this club, just in terms of the brainless decision to do a Cruyff turn in his own box, which led to him being caught. Now, Ange Postecoglou has said Romero felt something in his quad. That's just the way our season has gone. Brennan just didn't feel very, very well. So at half-time, he wanted to carry on Brennan, but we had to make a change. The plan was for Mickey to play 60 to 70 minutes without Romero going off. He didn't feel anything significant, just a little bit of tightness. So that was the update also on Mickey van der Ven, because as you will know, Mickey did go down in that game, and there were concerns that, again, had Mickey done a hamstring injury. But it just appears that there was a little bit of tightness, so nothing to fear on that aspect. And I mean, let's say that half really was one where Tottenham had their chances, as they've had their chances really in a lot of games this season, where it could be a different scoreline. But ultimately, Spurs' failure to take chances is what's been really the thing that's let them down so far this season, on many, many occasions. I mean, like I say, the way that half panned out, Chelsea go 2-1 in front. Spurs, like I say, had a couple of chances. I mean, that VAR incident, to be fair, did dominate the way in which that half did come to an end. And when you look at, I say, the way Spurs at times were trying to, especially in the second half, regain composure, I think that was the biggest frustration coming over to you, if I can, Cracks, is that ultimately we didn't start the second half well. Chelsea flew out the box, and it just felt that maybe there was sense in blood that with Tottenham's situation that, there was, as we know from the fans, I wouldn't say an expectancy, but we needed the performance. We needed the result. We needed to be galvanised in the way we approach the second half. But, Cole Palmer scores from the spot. And what leads to that, really, if I'm going to be honest with you, is Yves Bissouma giving away a penalty where all I can describe it as is 27 seconds of madness from Bissouma. And it's all because the move started when Bissouma lost the ball on the halfway line to Neto. He's then way too enthusiastic in his desire to make up for the original mistake. He ends up bringing Cole Palmer down. He obviously now missed the Southampton game after receiving his 5th yellow card of the season. For Bissouma, in recent games, he has showed more of an element of composure, an element of calmness. But can we allow for that ill discipline to be shown? He showed it off the field this season. He's showing it on the field. I'm seeing many that are now saying, he's a liability at times for the club. Can you get this out of a player, or is this what Yves Bissouma is going to be like in this period at Tottenham for you?
I think this comes back to in the beginning of start is my end. It's what we was talking about with quality of player. Sancho does what he does and pulls a great goal out and gives them a bit of a lifeline when they're 2-0 down. And Bissouma does this. So, a lot of today just came down to the basic quality of player and the mentality of them as well. plus your mentality being shaped by what's going on the training pitch and how you're being coached and what you're being told. And I think that's the tale of the two teams and the two clubs, in that, as I said, Sancho does that, Bissouma does that, and it's idiotic, isn't it? But that's what you're going to get when the players haven't got the right mentality. So, coupled with what's gone on off the pitch with him, and he's been a little bit better in certain games recently, but as soon as you come to one of these blue ribboned big games, then Bissouma does that. You're not getting that goal or a match winning performance, or the game being caught by the scruff of the neck by Son, because age is now sadly beginning to catch him up. So this is all things that are going on within our squad, because we're just not buying at that elite level. Once you start getting a couple of those elite level players in, that rubs off on the rest of the squad and it brings them up. So again, like I said, until such times as we start spending some of that money that's now coming into the club, this is what we're going to get. So it's such fine margins, isn't it? They've got players that can come from 2-0 down, have got that mentality, are going through this on the training pitch, a manager that's able to find solutions with quality players to come back from 2-0 down to go 4-2 up. We haven't got that. Until that changes, then we're not going to have that. And again, coming back round to the start of the show, that's on Daniel Levy. That is on Daniel Levy. That is on this club. That is on this board. The finances have to be there. If they're there for other clubs that haven't got Beyonce on ice and the NFL and everything else that goes with it, the money pouring into that club now, I know we've got debts, but it is there. It is there, and it has to be spent, and it's not. Until it is, then we're going to have players like Bissouma doing those sorts of things.
Crackers, I'll say one thing back to you. I think it was 5 to 6 million plus Oliver Skip for Pedro Neto. What did Chelsea do? Show the money, get the player done. No messing about.
Yeah.
And that is the difference, unfortunately, between the two clubs. Many looked at Chelsea and laughed at them, a year and a half ago about their money spending. Isn't it funny when you get a competent manager in there that seems to get his feet under the table, work with the squad, and now suddenly, were they second in the league? And now, quite unbelievably, and a deep squad.
Yeah.
On TJ, 2 players for every position. I mean, look, that's a separate show. God, we could be going off on a tangent, but Cracks, I really appreciate you making that point there. TJ, we'll come over to you and discuss the next of the comedic incidents that Tottenham put us through, unfortunately, during that game, where, look, with a couple of chances before this, Van der Ven heading wide for a Porro free kick. Chelsea did score to go 3-2 up in the game. And, I will just say, actually, if I can bring this in, there was very shortly a massive Sonny chance that may have maybe changed where the game was going to go at one point. But the reality is that when you've got, Chelsea going 3-2 up in the nature, they got the goal, and then another penalty after a daft lunge by Pat Matassar, on Palmer. He's going away from goal, as many can see here from the image that we got on the screen. I don't know what goes through a player's head. And just so everyone knows in casting, Russ is absolutely shaking his head in the background. So we'll get his opinion on this in just a second. But TJ, what is going through? And I love Pat Matassar. I've made that clear. I think he'd be a great player for this football club. What's going through Pat's mind there to put a challenge in on Palmer? He's going nowhere. He's going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's several things going on with these players at the moment. And listen, we're not bashing these players because we're nasty people or we think that they're nasty people or we don't think that they're talented footballers. They are talented footballers, but they're not top tier footballers, or at least they're not yet. Certainly with Sarr, he's only a kid, he's still learning his trade, and I think he's an exceptional player. I know you have sung his praises on this show many times. I think all of the panelists actually on today's show have. I think what happens is that you get a bit desperate, and you get desperate when you're tired, and you get desperate when you're up against it. And we're so thin to a man right now. We're so thin. And so these players are obviously playing twice a week. It's a really grueling schedule. We know as well that Ange trains them into the ground. And so you will have a little lunge at a player even if he's heading out of the box. And that's a combination of youth, inexperience, and also just desperation and tiredness. And it's again, like, anyone who knows this game should be able to kind of look and go, yeah, Biss hasn't had a great game. He hasn't had a great game in a while. So take him off. And well, then who do we bring on? Can't bring on Bentancur, can we? He's banned. We're not going to bring on Bergvall. So I want it to work for these guys. I want them to have a great game every time. And I love singing the players' praises. I love doing that. I'm a very positive person, very optimistic person. And I'm a very optimistic Spurs fan. Goodness knows how I've managed it, but I have. And so I would love to just pat them all on the back and give them a big kiss and a cuddle and go, you guys have done brilliantly, but they're just spent right now, man. And they're desperate and they're making silly decisions. Often, when we're backed into a corner, I don't know if any of you guys play poker or if there are poker people who are listening and watching, but when you take a bad beat, it's called being on tilt, right? So, and when you're on tilt, you'll play the next hand, maybe the next 2 or 3 hands irrationally, because you're on tilt from taking a big hit on the loss before. And a lot of these players look like they're playing on tilt because they've taken a lot of big hits, a lot of big losses, and they're just desperate, man, and tired. And they know they're looking at the bench as well. Who's going to come on, man? I'm not having a great game. Like, who's going to put their hand up and go, I'm not having a great game? Because who's going to come on and salvage this team? Nobody. Yeah. So I don't lay all the blame at the foot of the players or at the manager.
Combination, isn't it?
Show. I know where that blame lies. We need more players. We need better players, and just more of them.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I say, Chelsea, 4-2 there. Maddison's a chance to get a goal back for Spurs because his shot went over. Son a chance to score, but Sanchez saves. I think, look, you need moments in games that are going to change. And when Sonny goes through with his opportunity here at 2-2 is his. Sonny has a chance at 2-2. He's got to put it in the back of the net. I'm sorry, he's got to put it in the back of the net, Sonny. Big chance. Son does get one back eventually, though, firing low into Maddison's from Maddison's pass to make it 4-3. But if I'm going to be honest with you, it's another game where Spurs have thrown away a 2-0 lead, not for the first time this season. And as we know, December is not a kind month for Spurs. It's pretty unforgiving with the fixtures coming up. I am going to look for the close on this show, so I'm going to come to Russ to start. Russ, big month in store. This is a month that requires characters. It requires leaders. It requires togetherness. I don't think we've got that at the moment. I don't think we've got that at the top. I don't think we've got that amongst the players. I don't think, Ange has got the sufficient support needed to get us out of this. What does December look like in the build-up to January, where I mentioned for our listeners on audio, 23 days away from it opening right now? Tell me, Russ, where we're going to be.
Rick, it doesn't look good based on what we've seen over the last few weeks. I mean, TJ, I thought you were very nice to the players there. I thought what Romero did was stupid. Bissouma's tackle was stupid that gave away the penalty. Sarr wasn't brilliant. These are the sort of things that have got to be drilled into the players by the coaching staff. And I'm not entirely convinced by them, I have to say. And I just think that it's going to be a very, very difficult time. And if we get the other side of Christmas into early January and things have started to go our way and Ange is doing better and, I think short to medium term, excuse me, apart from you crackers who get rid of him today, will be, quite happy. But it just the way it's shaping up, the biorhythms don't feel right. And I think that there is change coming, without a doubt. And it won't be change with top-level players coming in, not least as TJ said, because it was January coming up. It's always very difficult. We're not in the market for paying these top players, let alone paying for them.
Russ, I want to say a massive, massive thank you to you. I think
it's a pleasure. This is the hardest job I do coming on here. I go on the Jeremy Vine show. I'm talking about Putin, Starmer, Nigel Farage, ASBOs, the NHS. And this is the hardest thing because...
Russ, I mean, don't switch up when I say this. You're a Tottenham fan. Get yourself out of here.
That's right.
The-
Yeah, I don't
I
like that
can't-
show either. That's
I
predictable.
can't believe bush tucker trials are worse than this. I refuse to believe it. Don't put us in a bush tucker trial and last one on Spurs, please don't.
It's
That's
a
maybe our
pleasure, Rick,
Christmas show.
anyway.
Maybe that's where our Christmas shows need to go, to bush tucker trials. Russ, I want to say a massive thank you.
Pleasure.
Cracks will come over to you next. Russ, there's so much love for you in the comments. I'm not sure if you open them at times, but God, they love you out there. They do love you. Cracks, listen, you know how much they love you as well. I mean, look, mate, they pine for you down the high road. I think, and it's nothing with Cracks guy to say in general, physical wise. He doesn't get down the high road most of these days because the fans fucking love him. They absolutely adore him. They absolutely do. Cracks,
Rick, it's funny. It's funny that you should talk about the I'm a Celebrity and the Bush Tucker trials, because there's a plane coming from Australia bringing all the celebs back.
Oh my
but
God.
it has got to go back to Australia. Will it be taking somebody back the other way?
Oh, you are too funny.
That's the
Cracks, close us off. Where are we now going into this crunch period?
I think we're in the mud, Rick. Listen, when I say things, it's not what I think. It's just a reflection of football. So with Ange, look, roaring with the away fans, you can't do it. It was utterly unacceptable at Bournemouth. Some of the things that people were saying to him, it's just it's crude and it's horrid. But you have to take it on the chin. You just have to. That's the rules of it. Now, when you start rucking with the away fans and you seeing results like today, the writing is beginning to be put onto the wall. Now, is that right or wrong? That's not my personal opinion. That's the way it is. It just looks like this is all beginning to unravel at quite a pace for him now. So, and I can't see this getting any better, to be honest. I think we're going to be having quite a few of these shows coming up in the next few weeks. We got some tricky old games coming. Sorry, Rick. That's the reality of it.
Are you going to tell me that I've got to now convince my missus that we're going to have a third child just to get me off here?
I'll come back in and host again. It's but it is. I can't see this improving, Rick, anytime soon. I really can't. He's not for changing. It's not working. Like the maths on this only brings you to one result, and that's just the way it is in football. That's not my personal opinion. I'm just telling you, we've all seen this movie before. We can see what's coming. This is going to be difficult. I would be amazed if anything significant changes in our performances or the way that Ange operates is coming. I just can't see it coming down the line, and I think we're in for a bumpy old rest of the season. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Guys, thank you so much. TJ, let me turn to you. I've been telling TJ on WhatsApp. Oh, I need you. I need you. Honestly, mate. It's look, let's be honest about it, mate. Similar to Russ, you've come in at the same time in terms of how long you've been doing this for. We've had great shows on there. We've had tough shows. We've had difficult spells. We've had great spells. You know, we've had great wins. We've had great moments. You know, I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks' time. But it does feel that, you know, right now what we see ourselves in is a difficult moment where, let's be honest about it, we all do need to stick together. We need to grab onto something or someone to lead us through what does feel like a difficult period. What do you see this next month going up to January looking like now? Because it feels like it is a real tough moment where, quite frankly, everyone is disconnected, from the ball to the players to the fans. It's tough. It's tough.
It is tough, Rick. I mean, listen, firstly, my thanks as always for having me on the show. And it's just lovely to be on with you, Russ, and with you, Crackers. You know, it's honestly an honor and a privilege. And as well to our viewers and our listeners, man. Thank you for the comments, whether you agree with us, whether you disagree with us. We're doing our very best for you in a difficult time. What will this next month behold? In all honesty, again, who chuffing knows? Who knows? Who knows? Is it going to be one of those instances where we're now so thin, paper thin, that Ange doesn't have a choice but to play, you know, these younger kids that we've got, and it's a cometh the hour, cometh the man type situation? You know, do they rise to the occasion, or do they bend under the pressure? We just don't know. once we then get to January, I know it's difficult to bring in players in the middle of the season, but look, it's beyond essential. It's utterly critical. The survival, if we're going to try to even remain out of a relegation battle this season, let alone try to win cups or whatever it may be. We are desperately in need of strengthening. We're going to need to bring in at least 2 more players, if not 3. And if one of them could be somebody that makes the players and the coaching staff and the fans excited, that's going to help us a lot. We need a mental boost as well. We need a bit of a cuddle. We've been kicked around so much this season.
You talk about us or you talk about the panelists or the
all of us, bro.
Club, all of us.
All of us. I am talking about us. I'm talking about all of us, the whole Spurs family. We've been kicked mercilessly this season. We need a bit of a cuddle. We need a bit of comfort, don't we, Russ? A bit of nurturing, man.
We do.
So give us something to believe in January. Just give us a little something to believe in. Put some smiles back on our faces. This show does make it easier. It really does. It does make it easier. And I can kind of go on now and enjoy my Sunday. So my thanks to you all, to the viewers and the listeners. I look forward to being back on the show. Love to everybody, man. Thank you.
Love you, brother. Like I say,
brother.
I have to just keep saying this, honestly. Brothers, honestly. Brothers in uniting. Like Crack said at the start of the show, if only we had the way in the slickness, the way the show is run at times, my God, what a club we'd be like. But I want to just say at the very, very, end of this show, the way I finished it at the top guy, off the way I started the show, that I will say to you, and I'll be honest with you right now, that probably this is the most disconnected I have felt as a supporter for a very, very long time. And with that does mean that, I want to be able to keep bringing you the very, very best content when it comes to the podcast that we put out and the amazing guests that come on this show. I happen to say it, and I don't want to be in an arrogant way. I think, the awards that we've won, the guests we've got, I think we are the best Tottenham podcast out there. And it is down to you amazing viewers and listeners that vote up on this show year after year and give us that support. But I'm going to say to you that I am, disconnected right now. And that upsets me. It hurts me. I don't want to be disconnected. I don't want to feel like I'm losing my support for the club, because the club is everything to us all. Apart from our family, our children, our kids, or whatever, they are probably, for many people out there, the first thing we think of when we wake up in the morning, the last thing we think of when we go to bed at night. And that's what I mean when I say that this is everything to a lot of people, football. I think as Cracker says it often on the show, it's the least important of the very important things in life. And that's why I will just make that point that I want to continue to strive and to give you the best possible shows, the best possible panelists that come on here and give us so much of their time for football. And I would just say, look, I'm going to try my best to keep the standards as what they have always been in these last, God knows how many years, for you amazing people out there. And fingers crossed, the club in turn repays us. So thank you for your support. Thank you for keeping with us through us at the moment. I know it's tough. But look, we love you all. We support everybody out there. And it's just tough being a Spurs fan at the moment. And you guys know it. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Richard Cracknell. Crackers, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate your star. To the brilliant Russ Williams. Russ, thank you. We love you. TJ, thank you so much. Honestly, guys, look, like I say, please keep the faith. We'll still be here. Just, as always, keep the faith and come on, you Spurs.